Before using either ExpoDev or the power dial, be sure your meter is adjusted to read EVs and is set on ISO 100, regardless of the film's rated speed. If you're using the power dial, set its ISO value to the rated film speed. If you're using ExpoDev, it will set the film's correct speed automatically as soon as you select your chosen film developer combination from its database. When the subject is illuminated by general front or top light, you can usually take the high reading by standing at the subject and pointing the meter at the camera. Take the low reading in some subject shadow, again pointing the cell at the camera. Alternatively, it's frequently satisfactory to take both readings right near the camera, positioning the incident meter cell in the light so that it's illuminated just as it would be in the subject area. You can often find a local area of shade that matches the subject's shadows, or meter your own body shadow to take the low reading. Unusual light conditions require special metering techniques. To preserve highlight tones in bright white clouds or surf, for example, swing the meter toward the sun to take the high reading. Similarly, in fog or diffused light, use the highest reading you can get to prevent the highlights from burning out. Remember, the low reading controls exposure and therefore image density. The high reading determines subject range, which controls development and therefore image contrast.
In most cases, you can do these outdoor scenes with just two readings. This would be the shadow reading. This could be the highlight reading. The difference between those added to 5 would be the subject brightness range. If you want to expand the range and reduce developing time, you expand the difference between these two readings. The shadow reading is important for the exposure. This you don't want to mess with too much. But if you want to change the contrast overall, you can adjust the highlight reading to expand or contract the subject brightness range. If I take the reading here, this will brighten the leaves considerably. If we want to darken those, I turn back toward the light like this. This becomes the white reference still. Now the leaves are very much darker. And the decision you have to make is where you turn the meter to get the relationship you want. We're simulating the shadow condition that you see under the leaves or under the branches here. And if I take the reading here, the shadows on the tree will be relative to this reference black, probably lighter than this. If I want to darken those, I can move this black card out of the shadow into the light a little ways. And now that if this is the reference black, those are going to be very much blacker. And speaking of black, here comes a black reference for you. Come here. Come here, dog. Come here, Toby. Come here. Come over here. Sit. Sit. Now, if we wanted to photograph Toby, if this is a reference black, he's going to be very much blacker than that. So if I move over into the shadows like this, take the reading here, then we'll raise these values up considerably and we'll get a better rendition of it. Thank you, Tobe.
Taking the high reading with the meter angled toward the light lengthens the SBR and reduces contrast. Angling away from the light shortens the SBR and increases contrast. These adjustments are usually not necessary, but as you'll soon see, they can provide a useful creative control.
Well, we're standing inside a kind of a balcony here, a portico, and so we're in the shade. The sky up above us here is relatively bright in this scene, but we want it to print gray as well, a very light gray. So I'm going to be cheating the meter. I'm going to be able to reach out from under this balcony into the open light, and we're going to cheat the meter toward the sky, which should, okay, take it up a little bit. You think we should turn it completely up?
Turn it right up the sun.
All right. That will very much bring down the value of the trees and the foliage out there. Okay, it took it up about a little less than a stop to 10.3.
That's about it right there.
All right. And the shade reading probably the low reading is probably going to be adequate right inside the portico here. So I'm going to just back up into the shade and point the, in this case, the dome toward the camera.
There you go.
Okay, and it's about 9.0, so we have a 1.3 stop difference there, which added to 5 is about 6.3, which feels about right. With a, all right, and we'll just take out our high pack here and make some fast entries.
It's going to be great peeking through there.
And we'll f8 and 2/3. I'm going to close down a little more, so
Yeah, get on that.
I'm going to set it at f16.
16 sounds good.
And I'll get a, in this case, a 1/15 second exposure, f11 and 2/3. It's a fairly fast operation once you're,
Lost the sun there.
we'll wait for it a little bit. Maybe it'll peek through again.
Get one first. Be sure that you got.
All right. We'll, all right. We've got,
Okay. Now the pressure's up.
now we can relax a little. Thank you, Phil. It's great to have a mentor right behind you, encouraging you to move quickly. Now we'll wait for the sun, I think. I want a little more of the path in this image, and I'm going to have to back up a little to get it. So let me go back maybe a few feet to maybe about here.
The sun is better than
It is. Yes, sir. It's one of these shots where the moment is everything. All right, this looks better. A little more path. I can bring the camera down just a little to bring it in. And I see no reason why we can't do the light the way we did it before. So we're going to point the meter at the sun. Okay, we're right here, and we're going to take the high reading looking forward here. It's about 11.4, up a stop from last time, and then just turn it around. And now we have 10.5, so my goodness. Get out Expo Dev, make some...
10.4, 11.5?
Yes, sir.
10.5,
Does that feel?
11.4.
Yes, sir. 10.5 is the low. So we're going to turn the film holder over. We'll be using 4. Still have the 210. The high was 11.4.
Right.
All right, so we have a 5.9. That seems perfectly reasonable. Once again, no need to check filters or anything like that. We can shoot this at f16 in the third at about 1/30th. Okay, filter number 4, we're closed down. And here we go. Everything looks great out there. All right.
Nice little height over the top of do you see that or not?
Right on top of the building there?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So we'll see that angled roof. I think it'll be there.
Yeah.
A very dark, very interesting tree stump that appears to have been down for some time. It has a blackened kind of effect now, and very nice outward striations that are light. But it's going to be a two-dimensional and a relatively flat subject. We should be able to take a single, Phil has suggested we should be able to take a single light reading here, which would equate to a 5-stop subject brightness range, which is one way to interpret this. And I think I'm going to do 2 negatives. The second one, to bring up even further these nice high values and this incredible detail, we'll actually use a high value that's set a little lower than the low value.
You have to check the IPAC to make sure.
A little bit of a challenging tripod situation here. Swing this around, I think. Start to get about where we want to be. I think we want to look about right.
Pretty close. The stump is actually slanted a little.
It's,
Maybe not quite directly over.
okay, now this, gotta be careful with this because our first interpretation of this subject, though, is as two-dimensional, and in a two-dimensional sense, we're not going to concern ourselves with the usual high and low reading.
Flat light too.
Flat, very flat light. We're in a woods here, a very lovely place, but the sun is very definitely behind the leaves up there. So we're going to go right to the surface of this subject, Phil, I think.
A little sun coming in on the corner there, don't you?
Let's take a look. Sure. Let me get my hand under this meter. Just be careful about reflections. Okay, stays about 10.5, 10.6. So we're going to use that single setting in Expo Dev here. The focal length this time is 120. My flare factor is preset by default in Expo Dev at 0.02, which seemed to work out just fine for me. I have a variety of different films in here for different exposure scales and different developers. We're using DDX, which is a very nice Ilford developer, very clean and easy to use at 1:6. And we're shooting on a paper exposure scale of 1.10. That is my equivalent, tested equivalent of about grade 2. And I think we read 10.5, 10.6, Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to set both the low value and high value to exactly the same value, and that produces what we would expect, a 5-stop subject brightness range. We're going to be developing to an average gradient of 0.77, which will be a little more development than normal. We're close up, so the next screen gives me the choice now of entering my subject distance, which was in inches. I've set the default to inches, so it's 37 inches. Expo Dev has verified that this is a close-up. Once again, focus is important, but we only have a very two-dimensional subject, so we don't need to stop down a heck of a lot. This is 5. I want to be very careful. Thank you. Very careful here not to move the camera. There we go. Film holder is seated. We're sure we're cocked and ready to go. Very carefully bring out the slide. All right.